I'm Vic Gordy with Russ Electric. This is the training in the 7th floor penthouse at ATS 10. It's where we'll do all the live demonstrations. Go over some of the actual hardware inside the ATS. Once again, you have your controller up there. Next to it, you have your power supply motor controller. There's 4 LEDs on that device, which if you're having trouble, we may ask you to look at those LEDs. The 2 on the left are your 2 24-volt power supplies. Those should be lit all the time. Your 2 on the right are the one on the right is the normal utility power. The one on the left is the generator power. Obviously, the generator power light is out right now because you don't have any. Then you have your 2 control transformers. Inside, you'll have your bypass handle. You notice on the older switches, you have 2 handles. On the newer style, you only have 1. The isolation's done kind of like a breaker, and we'll get into that when we get down here.
Okay, go ahead.
You have all your interconnect wires. The 2 most important you guys might use are these top 2, which are your engine start wires. You may have to remove one of them if the generator. You also have your CT shorting block here. This is unshorted. If you had to do something with the CTs for whatever reason, that would be your shorting block. And then we have the cross arms and such for the bypass functions. In the bottom here is your actual ATS. This is a closed transition ATS, so you have the 2 solenoids. You also have your rectifier module and your driver board. These 2 boards are what drive your solenoids. The rectifier module is what rectifies the AC and the DC voltage to control. This is your driver boards here. You have a normal and an emergency stacked on top of each other, and your rectifier module. This is what fires the solenoids. This is what controls the voltage. It converts the AC to a DC. There's your 2 solenoids, and here's your secondary contacts. On the older ATSs that was in the back, on these new 30-cycle ATSs on the side. The racking out, the isolation is done via this. You see the bar is blocking it right now. It's done by a crank handle, and that bar will go away once you bypass the switch, and we can demonstrate that here in just a few minutes. Also, on these bigger ones, here is your manual for this ATS. There's a slot up here for you to keep it in. As you can see, the screen here is blacked out. There is a screensaver mode. You can still see the status lights. So we hit the home screen. It tells you the name. It's a closed transition. It's a 400 amp switch at 480 volt. Here's that job number I mentioned. This one is 35792. It's also written right here on this white sticker like I said it would be. And if you open the door, there's a gold sticker right there with that number on it, 35792.
That's your serial number, it says.
It's basically the serial number, the job number. There's also a gold sticker on that, and it also would be in this blueprint in your manual. When you call for service or you have a question about it, we need to know that number so we can pull the blueprints and the schematics and such for this particular ATS. We go to the alarm reset screen. Right now you have source 2 disconnected, source 1 connected, source 1 okay. What you can see here, source 1 is okay, source 1 is connected, source 2 is disconnected. If we go back to the home screen and you go to your values, you're going to show here where this is a level 5, you have the 3-phase voltage, 480, frequency, kW. This is your source 2. You also can go to your amperage screen and you see your amps. Now that's only on the load bus. It doesn't matter if it's on utility or generator. The amperage is on the load side of the ATS. You go to your volts, it shows you your source 1 and source 2. Hit power, it can show you your kW, kVA, kVAR, and your power factor. And power quality if you want dynamics and such. If you go to set points, and then operation, and then timers, here's all your timers. You guys have a 3-second gen start with a 30-minute return timer, a 1-second neutral timer, and a 10-second cooldown timer because the cooldown's handled at the switchgear. You also have 180 seconds for fail to sync. So this thing, if it's trying to transfer, if it doesn't sync within 3 minutes, you'll get a fail to transfer light. And you'll get that on the alarm, and you'll see it on the status screen. If you hit the home screen and then diagnostic, and you go back down, looks like you guys had a generator run yesterday. So if we hit the enter screen at 10:45 yesterday, you had about 33 amps on all your phases. You were still connected to source 1, and you had your voltages on source 1. If we hit test, as you can see, everything's grayed out. We'll put in your password. Everything turns orange.
Except that one that's grayed out is...
Yeah, you can push any of those buttons when they're grayed out, and it brings up the password. Then they become active by horn. You have transfer load, no transfer, and end. And this is just LED test. It just lights the LEDs. No transfer is just going to start the engines. That's all it does. Transfer load will start the engines, and it'll try to sync. So with transfer load, you see the timer active. Waiting for S2 OK, gives you an engine start. Test initiated. No, it's still closed.
Okay.
So Gen 2,
Whoa.
there it transferred. Send it back with it open. We got to go back to the test screen, and you have to end the test. So you end the test. Then you see TD active timing again. Waiting to connect to source 1. So you scroll down, time delayed preferred source, and you've got it set at 30 minutes or 1800 seconds. So we're going to bypass that timer. And transfer back, open transition.
Okay.
Now it's going to wait to stop the generator. 10 seconds. Now we're on normal. So now you got the light down here, bypass source 1. And if you look here, that bar's gone. Now you can rack that out. So you take your handle here. So it's out. Transfer switch isolated. You see it's racked out, and you can pull this all the way out. So when you bypass it to emergency, there is contacts in here to keep the engine running. But before you bypass it to emergency, you want to get the engine running if it's not already running. If this switch fails and you have no utility pair, but this switch has got the engine running, obviously you won't have to do this function. So I'm just going to do a no transfer. Now we're bypassed to emergency or source 2. So we can go back up, and we're back on utility now. Shows you you're reconnected to source 1. And obviously everything's gone back to OK. Bypass the ATS on S1 is the only abnormal, which we do have that.
When you put it back, what's going to show us?
Put it out, you get to lose the light, everything goes away.
That's back to its normal state.
So this is the automatic transfer switch down here, and this is your bypass up here. This is more like a mechanical switch here. So when this handle is in the up position, your load is being fed by the ATS. When you are down on either source, it's being fed by whichever source this is connected to. Your indication here, it only indicates what this is connected to. You can be bypassed to emergency and disconnected to normal and everything be fine on this particular switch. If you can be bypassed to normal and transfer this to emergency. Your load will still be on normal because of the bypass. This is like a wraparound. When you pull this down, it disconnects the load from down here and applies it up here.
So you can actually activate this back and forth without affecting the load.
So if you want to unbypass this, you just push the handle up. And then it moves the load from the bypass section down to the ATS section. Right, those are, like I said, those will withstand a fault for 3 cycles. These will withstand for 30 cycles. Right, a 3-cycle ATS, if you were to have a fault downstream, that switch would start to deteriorate in 3 cycles. A 30-cycle will withstand that fault for 30 cycles. What that allows you to do is your downstream breakers should be able to trip open without hurting your ATS, or if this is feeding, let's say, that panel there, you have those breakers and you only have fault on one, it trips that breaker so your other loads still stay energized. As where a 3-cycle, it could start to damage that ATS before that one breaker trips, and then you could affect your whole load. So we'll go back to
I
close.
don't want to start them back up. Catch them while they're still running.
Now what I'll do is we'll go to test, and we'll do a no transfer. All that's going to do is start the generator, and this is what I want to show you. So you got the generator source running. So if we go back to the home screen, you hit that diagnostics, then you hit the phaser screen. You're going to see you have ABC rotation on utility, ABC rotation on generator, and there's your slip window, and you can see it rolling up to 180, and now it's coming back down to 0.
Okay, that's the same.
So it's going to transfer when that gets in within 10. Here you can also see your voltages, your frequencies, and your phasor angles. So you got 0, 120, 240, 0, 120, 240. So that means they're good.
You tell it to transfer?
No, I just did a no transfer, which is just the engine start.
All right.
I just wanted to show you this screen.
Show it to him, let it transfer. Show it to him in a sequence, a phase sequence. Right? Watch it, watch it, watch it.
See how it got that 27 and then it went.
Yeah.
There's a little delay on that.
When's it
On the update,
When's
but-
it transfer? What?
It's 10 degrees either side.
Now, are we looking at 2 different loads, comparing the two?
2 different sources, yeah.
Right.
Utility and generator.
Oh, I've only seen, this is the phasing between the two?
Right.
I should be seeing 2 to compare them to.
Okay.
2 different sources showing 2 different syncs.
You are. 2 different sources, 1 sync. This is the difference between them.
Okay, that's the difference between
That's
them.
your sync window. That's just like your analog meter. When the sync meter is at 12 o'clock, it's at 0. When it's at the bottom, it's at 180 degrees. So that's what that is. It's just a digital form of it.
Transfer, it's closer to 0 or closer to 180?
No, only at 0.
Only at 0?
Yeah. 180, you're
180,
completely out of
right.
you're completely out of phase.
Yeah, don't make it.
And how close to 0? How close to 0 will it go?
10 degrees.
10 degrees.
So this pretty much concludes the live demonstration of ATS 10 with the bypass function, the controller, and the closed transition ATS function.